This conference will now be recorded.
There we go. All right. Going to call the regular meeting of the Darien Parks and Recreation Commission to order. It is Wednesday, December 16th. And the first order of business is to approve the minutes of November 18th, 2020. So does anybody have any corrections or clarifications that they would like to put in there?
Page 6 has a minor typo. It's Weed Beach instead of what's there.
Yeah, the second line at the top, Jamie.
Yeah.
Oh, Weed Beach. Thank you.
Anybody
one.
else?
Yeah,
Oh.
Lori, I have one. On page 4, in that paragraph around the pesticide discussion, in the center of it, it says, Mr. Scurro reminded the commission, the sentence after that, where it says he was concerned that a decline in quality could be blamed on the commission. Actually, my concern wasn't that the commission would be blamed. I think that goes without saying. But my concern was, my concern was that that Jim would be blamed for the decisions that the commission was making. So, and maybe just to clarify that again, it just seemed like we were possibly going down a path here, and I guess we'll see how this turns out, that we might be taking a tool away from Jim and his team, which is fine, as long as over time, if it turns out that the town is not entirely pleased with the results of that, they don't come back and penalize Jim for that decision. So I'm fine. I think with the sentence preceding that and the sentence after that, I'm just as fine if we even strike that one sentence, and rather than kind of going to too many contortions to try to clarify it.
Okay.
Thank you, Jamie.
Absolutely.
Jamie, on that same page, the bottom of the paragraph, we were talking about the current quality. Where it's the last sentence. It should be could be maintained. I don't think it should be could not be maintained.
Okay.
You stated that you would be more inclined to attempt the test field, but with the understanding that the current quality could be maintained.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Other comments or clarifications? I only had the Weed Beach one, so good job, Jamie.
Thank you.
Although I will tell you.
Oh boy.
Print them out because I like to read them and print them out. And I pushed print and kind of nothing happened for a minute. So I pushed print again, and then I went off. And all 45 pages with all the public comments spit out twice.
I'm very sorry.
Not happy.
Yeah, I caught that quick. I caught it.
Yeah. I am not a tree killer.
I thought there was a mistake. It was like 48 pages.
I know. So I don't know if there's a way when you send them to us, either put a big disclaimer so we know to only print the pro, or have the public comments separate when you send them to us, as opposed to, but yeah, that was, yeah.
You could send a bill to the town.
Yeah, I got a lot of scrap paper now. So
I have one more comment.
okay, thank you. Yep.
On the motion that we put forth for the dog regulations for Weed Beach. I don't know. I thought that the motion was that it would be for 1 month. I didn't realize that the way I'm reading it here, and I think when I talked to Pam during the follow-up conversations, it sounded like we approved it until for the season. So
No,
I just wanted to,
we approved it till basically Friday.
that day, the end of this week or something like that.
Yep.
Right. Our motion doesn't read that way. It sounds like we've approved it for the season, and that we would check in December. And I know it's on discussion, but I think that it should be clear in the minutes what we actually approved as commission. And I don't know if it's just me not understand if that's not clear to everybody else. It's on page 6 at the top.
Yeah. I'm looking if it says remember to approve the winter dog program. Weed Beach in fine condition. It was definitely just until December 18th.
That was my understanding too. Because as you and I spoke about the follow-up that we had with Pam, that she was sending out information that said that the program was approved.
Yep.
And so I just want to make sure, especially if we continue the discussion today, what we're actually approving for, like what period of time. So.
Yes. So I think it should say motion to approve the winter dog program at Weed Beach until December 18th.
Yeah, if I can just maybe offer a view, I don't disagree with, I think, what's being said here. I do think, though, that the spirit of it was that because there were so many items, there was such a vigorous discussion around it in our last meeting, that rather than just go ahead and say, okay, in spite of all this discussion, we're just going forward with it. I think the spirit, at least the spirit of it in terms of the way I interpreted it, was that we weren't saying that we wouldn't be going forward with it. We were just saying, let's just at least, until we can nail all these other questions down, let's approve it only up through December and basically put folks on notice that we've got some further work to do. So I don't think that contradicts what you're thinking, Susan, but that just wanted to offer kind of my view on it.
It's just that it's not even mentioned that put in an end date, you know what I mean? Or, on this motion. And it is a motion that we are putting forth as a commission that we voted on. Yep. And, I'm fine with, but it's what we discussed. So I want to make sure it's clear.
Yep. No, you're correct, Susan. Okay. So I think it should say to approve the winter dog program at Weed Beach until December 18th, 2020 under the following conditions.
Yeah. And then I would just add then, that, given the clarification with the intent
December
of
19th.
Yeah, I would just add then with the intent of further discussing it at the December meeting for further approval or further. Yeah. Further
that
approval.
sounds good, Mike.
Yeah, because you're right. It's in the body of the text on the previous page on the 5th, and it references December 19th, but you're right. It should be in the specific motion.
All right, I'll update that.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Jamie.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other corrections or clarifications? No? Okay. If not, then if someone will make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I move that we approve the minutes as amended.
Okay, Mary Louise.
I second.
Mike. Okay, and then Jamie.
Lori,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes, sorry.
Kathy,
Yes,
Sarah.
yes.
Is Lucy not attending tonight because Amy and Tier have not arrived? I don't think.
Correct. Lucy, I don't believe is attending,
Okay. All right. That's everyone.
but we have a quorum. And Tier and Amy are coming. They just were delayed. Okay, good. So we're set on that, Jamie?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. So next we have public comment, and we do have a number of registered speakers. So I will just call them each in turn. We'd ask people to limit their, comments to, a few minutes. If you might, I don't think I'll have Pam set the timer, but, would ask, kind of a 3 to 4 minute sort of thing, not 10 minutes. Would be appreciated very much. First person on the list that was provided to me is Kelly Scallon. I think I saw her in there somewhere. Yes, there she is.
I'm here. Thank
You have to look on the screen. It's like the tiles. You gotta look. Where is she?
That's right. I'll keep it to 3 minutes like the Board of Ed.
Okay.
So I'd like to begin by saying that dog walking at the beach has been enjoyed by many and responsibly. Neighboring towns of Greenwich, Stamford, Westport, and Fairfield had enjoyed this amenity for many years, and Darien's dog owners were thrilled that we were finally allowed this privilege last year. The majority are aware of the posted off-leash hours of 9 to 1, as am I. And so it was a surprise last week when, after getting my dog off the beach at 1 and walking back to my car, I noticed an unmarked car following me and taking photos of me, as well as other dog walkers in the parking lot. I, along with the other walkers, were all walking our dogs on leash in the parking lot and not on the beach itself. Understandably concerned, I confronted the photo taker. The lady claimed that she was from Parks and Rec. She said that I was not allowed to be walking my dog on the pavement as it was after 1 p.m., even though I was walking my dog to the car to leave the beach. She was in an unmarked car with no proof that she actually was from Parks and Rec. Without police identification, the person has no authority whatsoever to be taking pictures and videos of people without their permission and distributing them. If I had my minor daughter with me, how am I to know that this person was not a pedophile watching my daughter in the unmarked car? My children walked to Weed Beach with our dog, and if they returned home telling me that a person in an unmarked car was recording them, I would call the police. I am not a litigious person, but I know that there are some Darien residents who are. And so I would recommend that this revolting behavior be stopped immediately. An even more disgusting fact about this situation is that the lady purposefully arrives to Weed Beach at exactly 1 with the sole intention of taking pictures and videos of people to distribute them without their consent. Keep in mind that people in these videos could be unsuspecting children. She uses these recordings as proof to prove that people aren't following the rules so that this dog beach program fails. She may be uncomfortable with me speaking about this tonight, but she sure had no problem recording me as well as other people without our permission. With regards to the signage at the beach, it's not the amount of signs, but the content within. Please state what you mean. Currently, the sign on the guardhouse says dogs allowed on the beach from 9 to 1. The sign should say, perhaps, no dogs allowed past this point after 1 p.m., including those on leash. A common sense approach to rules is what Darien taxpayers expect. Why aren't we allowed to walk our dogs on leash on the parking lot during winter months? Going forward, I hope that volunteers do not let their intense personal agendas sway them from voting for what is best for Darien residents. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Kelly. Next, we have Cara Bonsack. If I said that correctly. There you are. I see you.
Hi, thank you. It's Cara Bonsack, and nice to meet everybody. I know a number of folks on the commission, but certainly not everybody. I have lived in Darien for 15 years. I'm also an elected member of the RTM on the Parks and Rec Committee and on the board of the Darien Land Trust and the Trust for Public Land in Connecticut. And I share that background a little bit, just my comments don't come per se as a resident of the Pear Point Beach area, but as a longstanding supporter of parks and open space in our town, in our state, and really throughout New England. I want to make 2 comments tonight. The first is a follow-up from my email last month, and I'm glad I have this opportunity because it was one of the 40 pages of comments. So I'm not sure if everybody read it, so I'm happy to be able to underscore and say, I please hope you guys can put in your budget some support for simple maintenance of the Pear Tree Point Beach bathhouse. I distributed, and if you didn't get it, let me know, I'll send them to you, color photos of the beach house at Weed Beach and Pear Tree Point Beach. And I think these photos show some simple maintenance, such as fresh paint, mirrors over the mirrors over the sinks, new bathroom fixtures. Will do a long way to addressing some of the maintenance issues at Pear Tree Point Beach. I think our residents expect that we'll maintain all of our facilities at a similar standard, and I think Pear Tree Point Beach is long overdue for some really simple basic maintenance. So that was my first comment. My second one, just diving into another thorny issue in town. I'm a dog owner, as most people in Darien are, and I know so many people consider a 4-pod canine to be part of their family. And I appreciate all your work to try to navigate sort of the needs of dog lovers and dog loathers. And as you guys are trying to thread this needle, I too would love to see dogs off leash through the winter months on the beach. So thank you guys so much for all the work that you do. And thank you for letting me make a comment.
Thank you, Cara. Okay, next on the list, we have Tessa Wiegard, who I think I saw somewhere as well.
Yes, I'm here. Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity
There
to
you are.
speak.
Sorry.
I wanted to say a few words too about the winter dog program. I too am a dog owner. I live within walking distance of Weed Beach. We got a dog about a year ago and really spent as much time at Weed Beach in the dog area as we could last year over the winter. And then the pandemic hit, and I'm sure I'm not the only parent who feels like it's been a struggle to get the kids off of screens and find opportunities for them to spend time outside, activities, places they can go, things they can do that feel safe in the current climate. And the dog area has become a really big part of our weekly routine as a family. The kids can go there, meet a friend or two with their dogs, spend some time there with masks on at a distance safely. It's not just for us to really, it's not just about exercising our dog. We could go to Rowayton Dog Park for that. It's really about utilizing a part of the beach that I think is really underutilized. I'm not sure that we would spend that much time at the beach as a family over the winter months if we didn't have this opportunity to bring the dog there. And it's about creating the sense of community and maintaining a sense of community too. There are a lot of friends that we meet there, people that we spend time with there, others that we have only met there for the first time. The kids can, you know, make new friends there as well. It's really been a wonderful opportunity for us. And so one comment I would like to make as well is that, you know, as much as the kids love going and it's such a family activity for us, as I said, it's very difficult for them to go during the week because, you know, they don't finish school until after 2. And then even on half days, they really aren't through with school activities until about 1 o'clock. So not only would I like to request that we see the hours extended or the dates extended through March, but also the hours. I think it would be wonderful if we could continue to bring dogs to the beach until maybe dusk so that everyone could take advantage of it. And all the times that I've been there with members of my family, never have we encountered anyone who had a problem with us being there. You know, no one really ever seems to use that. I've seen that part of the beach for anything other than dogs at this time of year. So I just think it's a really wonderful service that exists for us, and to take full advantage and really maximize the use of the beach at this time of year. Thanks.
Thank you, Tessa. Next is Elizabeth Lane.
Hello, it's Beth Lane, really. Can you hear me?
Not too well.
Okay, hold on. Let me get rid of my Bluetooth.
Did we lose her altogether? Beth,
I think she had to sign out. Yeah.
Okay, well, why don't we go to Jenny Schwartz, and then if Beth rejoins us, I will check back and call on her again. Jenny, I see you're there.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And I just wanted to say also, I wanted to speak, first of all, Jenny Schwartz, 8 Saddle Ridge Road. I'm on the RTM District 1, and I'm also on the Finance and Budget Committee. I'm a dog owner and an avid park walker. I wanted to thank you for offering this program. It's really, you're really servicing a need because particularly in these times, these difficult times, we really need a place to be outside and enjoying our beautiful parks and beaches with our families and with our dogs. I'm also speaking in favor. I urge you to extend the program through the winter months. My personal opinion is this is a really appropriate use of that part of Weed Beach. I think I wanted to reiterate I think it was Tessa's comment about extending the hours due to the fact it's difficult for, I think the 9 to 1 window's too small. And if you offer an extended period, maybe dawn till dusk or 9 till, dusk, where you can get people who are getting ready for work or getting ready for school, or after school kids and whatnot. It just allows more time to disperse the amount of families and dogs who can use the park. It's been very important to have access to our parks, and as a dog owner, I live in a part of town where there aren't any sidewalks, so I have to drive to be able to enjoy the parks, and it's really been a nice right to have. So I encourage you to extend the program, please, and extend the program through through the winter months, and keep the dogs off leash. I think it's a really appropriate use of the parks. And thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jenny. I think I see that Beth Lane popped back in.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I had some problems. As soon as I touched my Bluetooth earbuds, they disconnected me from the meeting. So
No problem. So, okay, you are up.
Okay, thank you. So my name's Beth Lane. I've lived in town for 20 years, and for the first time, I actually have a dog. It took a long time to convince my husband, but we finally have one. So I brought her down to the beach last Friday for the very first time, and I kept her on leash because she's 3 months old, and I have no idea how she's going to react to all the dead fish on the beach and stuff like that. But I honestly had never, in all my times going to Weed Beach, even noticed the part of the beach where the dog walking is. And I was frankly delighted to discover that there was a part of the beach to use, and that it meant that I think an underutilized asset is now being utilized at a time of year when, even though it was 60 degrees, a beautiful day, the only people at Weed Beach that I saw the whole time I were there were in the dog walking section. I don't know why nobody else was there, but they weren't. And I think this is a great way to use the park in the winter when people have been inside so much. We're going to be inside for a long, cold winter, and it's a great way to get out and safely see other people and have dogs see other dogs. And in that case, everybody I saw had on a mask, was following all the rules, and left by one. So I really urge you to support the continuation of this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Okay, next we have, let's see, Pam Zangrillo, who I did see in there. Yes, there you are.
Hi, Pam Zangrillo, 5 Robin Hood Lane. I'm a lifelong Darien resident, and I have 5 main reasons why I support this off-leash area at Weed Beach. Recreation, social time connecting with other people, maintaining a safe social distance, peace and relaxation by the water. Aren't we lucky to live in a town where we've got the water? Our dogs, and exercise. The off-leash areas and hours at Weed Beach are important this year more than ever. It's an outside place to recreate with our dogs, with our friends. There's an added bonus for people at the beach because there's a peace and relaxation that you experience when you're by the water. In the book Blue Mind, the neuroscientists explain why this happens. It's fantastic. We all experience it. It's just kind of cool to hear the neuroscience behind it. Dogs are so much a part of families' lives. The benefits of dogs has been researched, and that's why there are so many dogs used for therapy dogs in many different ways. This year more than ever, we as a town can only benefit from more places to recreate outdoors with our dogs, both on and off leash. The social emotional benefits are great for citizens and for the dogs. Dogs need spaces to socialize with other dogs and with people to be healthy and to be, quite frankly, good dogs. Good dogs are well socialized. I'm fully in support of allowing the off-leash area at Weed Beach during the winter months for the full day. I love this idea that you're talking about dawn to dusk for all the reasons that have already been brought up. In fact, I fully support allowing dog walkers to utilize our beach parking lot spaces, walking with dogs outside, on the parking lot, on leash. It's space where there's no traffic. It's not dangerous. It's just that it's beautiful down by the water. We have a much needed. We need more space to walk with our dogs and our friends. The Pear Tree Point Road is packed with people. In closing, dogs, people, recreation, being near the water, and exercise both on and off leash, depending on the area, are the fabric of life at Darien, especially now with the pandemic. Let's keep our park spaces open for on and off leash use. Thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Thanks, Pam.
Yep.
Okay, next I have on the list Shannon Silsby.
Hi there. Can you hear me? I'm dialing in.
Yes.
Okay. Hi there. I hope this finds everyone well. Thanks for the opportunity to talk. I live at 42 Mansfield Avenue, and I am a member of the RTM as well, and this year sitting on the Park and Rec Committee. Calling in support of the winter dog walking program, and really have just 2 points. A lot has been covered by the previous speakers that I won't hit upon. But the first is really, I would love you to consider as you decide to potentially extend this to the end of March and extend the number of hours that dogs can be walked on the beach, just this whole notion of connection. And there's so many, I don't know if in the past as a Park and Rec committee that has been at the top of mind, but clearly this pandemic has laid bare for us our need for connection, as individuals with nature, with our dogs, with our family members, with other people, even if it's just from a safe distance across the beach, for our dogs, with nature and other dogs as well. And this program can be an unbelievable conduit of continuing that through what, as we all know, is ahead of us, a long, dark winter. So thank you for considering this whole notion of how you can dial up the ability for us to continue connecting with nature and each other and even ourselves and family and friends with this program. Who knew that a dog walking program could do that? And as I said, that my dog just walked in the room. The second point is I want to be mindful of the fact that not everyone wants to walk their dog at the beach, and to really respect our fellow neighbors who are not, interested in this program, and in fact want to use the beach, and they may actually not be open to dogs and comfortable around dogs. I think there's an interesting opportunity we have, and an earlier speaker mentioned, for a bit clearer communication about the rules of the program that absolutely lay bare for both dog walkers and non-dog walkers, the rules of the road per se, or the rules of the beach. And in doing so, I know that there's material on the website and that there's potentially some signage at the beach that could be optimized. And of course, signage at the beach that would change seasonally from no dogs allowed to here's when dogs are allowed. I think it's also an interesting opportunity for Park and Rec, and you definitely have a copywriter somewhere in that office that writes some really pithy copy this summer about different things going on in town, but perhaps to even highlight some of these, really treasured members of our Darien community, our dogs, and use perhaps some testimonials of people who are using the beach in a mindful and productive way for themselves, doing so following the rules. Do some type of a campaign when we all have a bit more time to pay attention, highlight what's so great about Darien, while also really making clear the rules of the program. That, I think, could go a long way, particularly, again, to be mindful of our neighbors who aren't dog walkers. And then everyone could kind of live in harmony through these winter months as we look to get outside as much as we can to, again, connect with each other, nature, and ourselves. Thanks for the opportunity to talk.
Thank you. Okay, next I think we have Mary Bloomer.
Okay. Hi, Bloomer. I live at 28 Sunset Road, and I'm speaking tonight in support of the winter program for dogs at Wheat Beach. I first want to just thank you so much for starting this program. Last year, my dog and I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was fantastic. I take my dog actually every morning to Cherry Lawn because I live much closer to that, where we're allowed off leash during the winter until 10:30, which is perfect. But there's sometimes when I miss that cutoff, so it's really great to have another place to go because I prefer to walk him off leash, and I think he enjoys that as well. So it's been great to have Wee Beach as an alternative space. We really, as I think I also would support extending the hours and, of course, extending it until March, which is what we had last year. Being outside with my dog has been a real stress reliever during the pandemic. And my children have enjoyed going to the beach as well on the weekends with him. And I think another, with this pandemic, I mean, Christmas is going to be really different with my family. It's just going to be just the four of us. And I think part of what we're planning to do is to go to Wee Beach. So I really hope that we are extending it at least till December, because I think it's just such a wonderful thing to be able to do. It's a pretty part of our town, and I really enjoyed the time that I've gone there with my dog. And again, I think everyone always obeys the rules when I'm there. I think the dog owners are extremely responsible. I mean, if anything, sometimes we find we're like cleaning up the beach because you find trash that I don't want my dog to eat that leftover, wrapper or whatever. We're picking trash up and things. So I do hope that you extend the program, the hours as well. I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, next we have Priya Krishnan. There you are.
Hi, good evening. I'm Priya Krishnan. I'm a resident for past 20 years. I have a 7-year-old chocolate lab. I really urge you, ladies and gentlemen, to think of increasing not only just the time, but the winter months. My husband is an avid fisherman, has been using Weed Beach forever, so we are mostly there, and it's such a blessing to be in a town which has this program where you can utilize the beach in a safe way. I understand there are people who are not quote unquote dog lovers, and I think what everybody has been talking about very truthfully, we have to have the rules very clearly stated without any finger pointing. At the same time, I'll have to tell you a little bit of a personal story. It had been a rough year for us last year. My dog had a malignant growth for which he had to be operated on, and just the ability to go out and see him enjoy the beach took a lot of the whole process of undergoing this so much more bearable. I have found I also am pretty close to Cherry Lawn, so I go there often as well. But the community I have found, which has now extended to Weed Beach, makes, in these times especially, extremely important for us to connect. And it gives a way to find new people and a connection, which I think is the essence of Darien, our community. I really appreciate you guys thinking about this program, extending it, and giving me time to voice my opinion. I hope that you consider it favorably. Thank you so much for your time. Good night.
Thank you, Priya. And next we have Adele Conniff. Saw you, there you are.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you. I have a report from the Parks and Rec Committee that met last night. I think you've heard most of what I'm going to say, but here we are. This is the official report. The RTM Parks and Recreation Committee met on December 15th, 2020 in a special meeting with 12 of 14 members present to discuss issues that are currently before the Parks and Recreation Commission. Our focus was primarily on your proposed 2021-2022 Parks and Recreation Department budget and dogs. The committee would like to see maintenance funds in the budget for Pear Tree Beach Bathhouse. Suggestions were made for replacing faucets, toilet flush mechanisms, a broken soap dispenser, and reinstalling a drinking fountain / drinking water source. One of our members shared that she did not allow her children to use the bathroom, but had them use a portable potty in her car instead. Our interest is in having a clean, functional bathhouse. Our discussion on dogs focused on messaging and lack of adherence to rules. It was suggested that rule simplification and more clearly worded signage could be helpful to that end. Some members supported extending the dogs on the beach off-leash hours to from dawn to dusk at Weed Beach. Signage should consistently be in the same place at the entrance to the beach. Signs should explain in a simple format the commission policy that dogs are not allowed in Weed Beach year-round, with the exception of being in the designated off-leash beach area at specified dates and times. Fines for lack of adherence to commission policy should be meaningful. I might add that in our discussion, there were members who thought it would be good to be able to walk dogs on park property, but I realized that that would mean the commission would need to change their policy. Thank you.
Thanks, Adele. And last we have Patty. You're on mute, Patty.
Thanks, Lori. There's a woman named Laura Harrison. You can see her. She was trying to get on. I think she had just missed the 12 o'clock deadline because she was picking up her kids. Would you allow her to speak before me? She's been on for 35 minutes trying.
She's going to speak for you or instead of you?
No. She's on. You can see her name. She's right below you on my screen. She's right there.
Okay. All right. If it's, I will allow it if it's brief.
My name's Ella Harrison, and I enjoy walking my dog on Weed Beach, and I would hope you consider extending the program.
Yeah, ready to join.
Oh, my 5-year-old and 8-year-old have bowed out, but we have thoroughly enjoyed walking our dog on the beach. We're first-time dog owners, and we hope you consider extending the program. And we want to reiterate what everyone else has said that we approve of, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then Patty, did you have comments as well?
Sure. Thanks for letting her speak. Patty Baumgardner, RTM District 1, Parks and Rec Committee. First, I'd like to say that I am in support of the Parks and Rec budget. I watched it in the commission meeting in November, and we went through it. Adele went through the budget with our committee last night. And I'd specifically like to say I support in the capital project the repair of the tennis courts. I know that's a bigger ticket item, but they're in pretty good disrepair with all that patching. So I'm just throwing that out there that I support that. The second thing I'm in support of, along with the rest of the budget, is the pest control, and particularly if you're using geese relief or whatever you're going to use. Pam, thank you. We know it's worked in the past at Tilly Pond. I've been getting letters, maybe some of you all have too, from a woman who lives on Robin Hood Lane. She's the first house off of Tilly Pond, and the geese are coming up her driveway, into her driveway, and she's got young kids, and they're stepping in it, and they can't even. She sent me videos and things this week. So thank you for including that in your budget, Pam. And I would ask if there's the opportunity to speed that up so we don't have to wait till July to fix it. It's such an important community park. Maybe we can, ask the selectmen or the Board of Finance to give us a little appropriation there. Finally, I just would like to say I'm in support of the winter dog program at Weed Beach. I think everybody who spoke tonight did a very wonderful job, so I won't go on and on. I will just reiterate, I do think that part of the beach is underutilized, and so we bought it, and so now it's great that we're using it during the winter months. I have been going down there a lot at different times. That's where I saw Laura Harrison and her 3 daughters with their masks. Every time I've been there, there've been families and people with their masks on, including last Sunday, so that was great to see. And people have all left at 1 o'clock. So I support you continuing that program through March 31st, like it's been for the last 2 years. And I would request that it's extended from dawn to dusk, or at least 9 a.m. to dusk, because there are many kids that would like to be able to go down there after school, after a long day of school. I know me personally, when I go to 11:15 Mass and I'm getting finished at 12:15, 12:30, I barely have time to get down there on Sunday. And Sunday is the day that I really like to go down there with my dogs. So thank you for that. My one last point is I don't really understand why people can't walk their dogs on leash in that parking lot. I know that there are many neighbors on Nearwater and Nicholson that have been walking for decades as part of their exercise loop down that street. They just walk through the loop of Weed Beach and then they walk out. So I personally would hate to see them get a ticket for something that's just part of the exercise and outdoor time that they need. So I would ask you all to please consider opening that up officially for dog walking on leash time in that paved parking area during the winter months. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks for the program. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Betty. Okay, well, maybe some of the folks who spoke will, I think some, it looks like they dropped. Maybe some will stay on for our discussion, and that may be helpful, and maybe we'll even engage them a bit, which we don't typically do, but we'll see how things go. The next item on the agenda is the field maintenance practices, which we've been talking about for a number of months now, and we were going to circle back between the discussions between Jim Flynn and then Julie Kane and Deepika Saxena from the Pollinator Pathway. Jim is out plowing snow, or directing the crew who is plowing snow this evening, so he cannot be with us. We were in touch with Juliet to see if they wanted to have the discussion anyway, and it was her and Deepika's strong preference that they wait until Jim could be present. So we were going to move this agenda item to next month. So they've been talking about, you know, how we could proceed and move towards, you know, experimenting with moving to an organic program. But I think it was their preference that we just hold off on that. So if that's amenable to everybody, unless people want to have a general discussion or had follow-up questions, we can hold that till January.
I had one follow-up question, Pam, that I sent over earlier. Do we have any data saying that an organic treatment of the fields causes injury? We've had a lot of people reference.
Did she
Yeah, you just cut out?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if she finished.
It, but there hasn't been any data that really, so before we base a decision perhaps on that criteria, it'd be great.
Right, so I can read you. I sent your questions to Jim, and he gave me some follow-up, and basically he had said, when you asked the question, it was not said that organic applications for weeds cause injury. What was said is there is no organic weed product that we could use and be effective at suppressing weeds. That was one. Number two.
That's actually not true. That's not true, but that's okay. It was said that it creates injury. It was in the that for this month as well. It was repeated by the person from the, I think it was the University of Connecticut, several times. So I think that has been stated several times. If that's not the case, then we shouldn't use it as a criteria of how we're making the decision.
Okay, I'm just gonna carry on with your questions, okay? And so number 2, it was DHS and Middlesex Fields, which have been treated organically, and that that there is no data showing injuries there. Answer, Jim's answer. DHS has gone to all artificial turf for a reason. Both DHS and Middlesex have been resodded up to 2 times per year to replace all the worn turf. I'm certain the Board of Ed has never used organic treatment at all. I'm not even certain if they keep a log of what is ever put out as an application, organic or not, but I can't speak to their record keeping or safety data. 3.
Could we check with them on that? Could we check with the Board of Ed on that issue, though?
Sure,
The
I will.
kids play on Middlesex Field all the time. Yeah, if we could
Sure.
check on that, that would be great.
I will do that. And then the 3rd was, which would heavily, let's see. Oh, it says, I am concerned that this potential child injury issue when organic weed applications are used is a hypothetical issue only. And he came back to say, it's caused by, oh no, answer, where was the evidence to this statement? So I had, yeah, and that's all he said, that he didn't see any evidence to this statement. So when we have Jim here at the meeting, I mean, we can address that too. And in the meantime, from now till January meetings, I can follow up with the Board of Ed. How's that?
That would be great. And if there has been a lot of people saying that's one of the reasons why we're doing this. If it's cost, then we have to face the fact that it's a cost issue. If it's the fact that we're not too sure that the fields will be playable, then what does that mean? But I think we have to be transparent to everyone on why we're making this decision.
Okay.
Susan Daly, when you spoke to the Little League, I recall you said they commented that they could see the difference between the school fields that follow the guidelines that require the organics, or that they can't use the chemicals, versus the town fields, which they definitely said were higher quality. But did they translate that into to what Kathy's getting at, that there's been an injury problem when they use the school fields? Because I'm sure the school fields are used as well.
I think my sense from talking to at least Little League is they try to use all the rec fields as they can, because they're better for their playability players. They said that the Board of Ed field, there's very little improvements done on them, including things like lining and filling in places and things like that. But I didn't talk to anybody at the Board of Ed, so I can't speak to that. But having time on some of the school fields, I would tend to agree that our fields are definitely much more playable for the kids. So that's why that's their preference to use our fields. But they didn't say it caused any injury per se, playing on not organic. Organic fields, let's say. Or not. I don't know if we would call it organic. I think Pam's already alluded to it. I think that they're just not using the chemicals. They might not be doing anything to the fields. I'm not sure what they put on their fields. So I can't say they're organic. They just don't use maybe the pesticides that they're not allowed to use. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think what Kathy's getting to is what's been at least alluded to, is that with the poor quality fields, that players risk actual physical injury because their cleats get caught on a big lump of crabgrass or something. And we just don't know if that's anecdotal or whether that's actually happened. So I think, Kathy, if I'm understanding, that's what your question is.
Yeah, that is my question. I think we should, if it's the reason we're going to do something, we should know if it's true. The kids play on the soccer fields at Middlesex almost every single weekend in the fall and the spring. They play in Baker all the time as well. Baker's a Park Field, I'm sorry, but they play at, Tokenique for baseball. And so, if they're playing on these fields and there's no injuries and they're using all organic products, which I don't know is the case, then we should at least have that information.
Right. It's not my understanding that they're using all organic, but I certainly need to confirm that.
Any other follow-up, Amy? Or no? You sort of look like she was going to say something. Follow-up questions or things that you'd like Pam to follow up on?
Hi, yeah, I guess I'm just sort of confused on Pam's comment because my understanding was that the fields at the elementary schools were organic. Is that not the case?
I have not heard that, so I would just need to confirm that. I don't know if Jim Coughlin, do you know about that, Jim?
No, I can't answer for the Board of Ed and how they deals. I would pesticide free. That doesn't mean that they use organics. I can't. I really can't answer. I think we'd have to talk to the Board of Education and see what exactly how they're treating their fields.
We know they can't use. We know they cannot use the chemicals, but we don't know if they're supplementing with organic treatment, I think is the distinction.
True.
True.
And that's by law that's Connecticut state law, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So I guess that's the clarification that I wanted. Thank you, Lori.
Anybody else? Okay, then we will revisit this topic in January, and hopefully we won't have a snowstorm that night, and we'll be able to get our subject matter specialists back. Okay, so then the next item is the discussion and vote on the winter dog program. So we've had a number of comments on it from residents. Thank you very much. So let's open it up to discussion from the commission.
Pam, have there been any issues that you've heard about on your end?
There have been a few about, I think what I understand is happening to some of the residents that are using the property is, and especially Kelly Scallon and I had a conversation, is because when people refer to the designated area as the off-leash area, in reality, dogs on leash or off leash are subject to that designated area. So that's why some are confused about the pavement and the, walking their dogs on the parking lot, is because originally when we all spoke about this, it was about all dogs, whether they're leashed or they're not, belong to the very far left of the property, which is people are referring to the off leash area. But in reality, it's both. And so no dogs are allowed after March or before November. This program is November to March, but of course, right now, just through the month, but only allowed in the designated area. Outside of now, the request to open this up for walking their leash dogs on the pavement. So I hope that clarifies a little bit. But we have seen people there with their dogs, leashed or unleashed after 1 o'clock. There have been occasions I have not personally witnessed it on the times I've gone down, but I am not sitting there all day. I go down and make a stop, a look through. I haven't even seen, I've only seen a few people during the 9 to 1 time. But again, I might only be down there 2 times a week. But Jim has looked, Jamie Gore has been down there. We have our paddle staff keeping their eyes out, which I did send the commission a list that Jim Coughlin provided to me of data every single day through the month of what the paddle staff witnessed. And again, they're not out there all day long, but they are certainly taking notice. So, for the most part, I think people stayed within the area, but there are people that didn't understand the rules and were found walking their dogs mainly leashed outside of the hours and some unleashed.
Since our last meeting, I've tried to go down to the beach about 4 or 5 times during the week. And quite frankly, there have not been an extraordinary number of people down there. And the infractions that I've seen basically have had to do with a time frame where people stayed after 1 o'clock, whatever. Which brings me to the next issue. Why do we have this 9 to 1 o'clock arbitrary time frame? What purpose is it really serving if the people who are utilizing the designated area, why can't they stay there until it gets dark about 4 o'clock or so? That would be my take. I had 1 or 2 people I saw 1 or 2 people go to the right instead of staying to the left area and walk down the main part of the beach. They were too far away from me to say anything. But for the most part, that wasn't an issue. So I kind of think I'm going to change my position on this, and I would be more willing to suggest from November to March, opening that time frame up from, if not 9 o'clock, or if not dawn, then 9 o'clock to dusk in the designated area, and making it very clear what that area should be. Secondly, I have seen people walking in the parking lot with their dogs on leash, and is there a real problem why we can't do this during the same time frame? It doesn't seem to really create any problem. The other issue that came up before was the whole one of enforcement, and that is a real issue. You're not going to get the police down there checking for who's got a dog on leash or off leash. And I did speak to the animal control officer, and his attitude was, if he sees someone doing something they ought not to do, he gives them a warning the first time, and if he sees it again, he will give them a ticket. His preference is either you eliminate the program or you open it up. So that's kind of like where I am at this juncture. Make it dawn to dusk or 9 to dusk during the months of November through March, and perhaps consider allowing people to walk their dog on leash in the parking lot only.
Yeah, Mary Lise, I believe the reason we went with 1 o'clock is because we've had some fairly mild winters, and the thought was that after 1 o'clock, parents of nursery school age children, and then after a little later elementary school age children, go down and use the playground, which is not fenced off, and the concern that an off-leash dog might get loose and into the playground area. So I think we were trying, the intent, at least from my recollection 2 years ago, was to be very assured that the playground area was absolutely secure from the potential of an off-leash dog, because some people do let them run on the whole beach. And I've seen it myself. I've been watching the last month or so, at Weed, I've definitely seen it in different parts. Cherry Lawn, I've seen dogs clearly on the fields where there's a sign that says no dogs on the field, and there's a woman with her dog on the field. Diller, there's no dogs allowed. We're seeing that. So it is a challenge at all of the parks, and that's why I was hoping that the individuals who spoke so passionately about this would stay on, because the general challenge and frustration I think that the commission has with all of the parks and the various dog rules is how do we get people to abide by the rules? And Mike referred to this as a privilege last month, and I think it's been a frustration. And many of you were so passionate. How can we engage you to help us enforce the rules so that everybody can be comfortable, so the people who don't want to be in the park and have a dog run up and jump on them be comfortable? So we have to find a way for those of you who are so passionate about this to help us make this work. And I think that's where my personal frustration has been. And when you call out somebody, and Mary Louise, you emailed me to have me to, or when I've gone up to people to politely remind them, you are subject to terrible verbal abuse.
That is true.
So we need to figure out a way for those of us who want this so strongly to help with the enforcement and call out your neighbors who are not following the rules, whether you personally agree with it should be this side versus that side, whatever the established rules are. We need the help with that, and I'm open to suggestion. We've also had complaints about the amount of signage in the park, and I think Pam was trying to make it abundantly clear. Again, we will take volunteers. If somebody, or raise your hands and say, help work with the Parks and Rec Department, especially those of you on the Parks and Rec Committee, the RTM. Help us develop the signage that you think is clear. Own it. Help us own that signage. I mean, Pam has to run the parks, deal with everything, to sit around and think of the best way to word it and what's clear is a challenge for her. Do you guys feel strongly? Help us make this work so we don't have this continued frustration. That's really my plea on this, and then I'll shut up and let the other commission members talk.
Lori, I'm just, it was really interesting.
I hear two voices. Susan.
I was really interested. Oh, I'm sorry. It was really interesting listening to some of the public comment, reading the letters, and having been part of the dog conversation for many years, 12, maybe 13. It's just interesting to hear how people are using the off-leash time at the beaches versus the off-leash times that we've offered at places like Cherry Lawn. The sense I'm getting, I know a lot of Patty's done it. The Cherry Lawn group is pretty much like people that, go there after, kids are off to school and their dogs socialize, and so did they. Becoming very apparent that the beach, the off-leash times are being used like more in a family way. Like kids are going down with their new dogs, their new puppies. And I think some of that has to do with the change with the pandemic. Kids are now not in school full time, they're hybrid sometimes. So there's more free time there. And, I think as from that standpoint, and fair warning, I'm a new puppy owner. I think you guys all know that. Having adopted a rescue German Shepherd in March myself. And I think I haven't to be honest with you, I haven't been down there with her because she needs more training for the off-leash aspect. But I do think that as a commission, that we think about the actual use of how it is being used by families. And if we could figure out a way to have it be more family friendly, I'm open to that. But I am concerned about the enforcement aspect and how we handle that if any issues, because I mean, I'm also been keeping up with some of these off-leash, these parks and stuff. And I know there's been instances where, dogs running really fast off-leash might run into a person, a little person. So, I do want to see that, there's some self-policing, or maybe even if we could, part of the reason I asked that question about the monitor was, I mean, it sounds like we're not getting, sometimes it maybe not particularly at Wheat Beach, it sounds like so far, but at our other parks where we have a lot of off-leash happening in on-leash locations, that maybe we should consider as a commission having a monitor help us with some of this stuff. I think that it'd be nice if we could get it be a self-monitoring group, but as you know, it's just hard for people to do it. I mean, I've been in situations where I've been trying to tell people, oh, it's off-leash, there's no off-leash here, and then they look at me and they have a dog, and maybe I'm by myself, and it just feels really awkward. I think Kelly also mentioned, who do we know, who's coming to talk to you, especially during COVID when we're all wearing masks? Who are these people? I think to expect our residents to kind of police each other is a little difficult too. So anyway, 50 cents so far. I'd like to hear what you guys all think too.
Yes. So Pam, I'm happy to help put together some rules of the road. I'm an advertising technology and privacy lawyer in my real job, and I spend a lot of times drafting those things. So I'm happy to do that and put something together. I agree with what Susan said. I think what we heard tonight is that our community and our families want to use the beach. And and we're in the midst of going, as many people said, into a dark period of COVID where people are going to have to be outside to really actually be as a family or even to communicate with each other. And I think this is an opportunity for us as a commission to actually help the community and give them a way to be safe during COVID and be outside and use our parks. I also agree, Susan, that it's hard for people to self-police, but I do think we have to have some enforcement structure for it to be real. So I don't know if Pam, if you don't sound like you have the staff right now to really enforce it. I don't know if that's what you want to use your current staff for. But I do think we need to have it enforced at the beach. I know that the dog warden doesn't particularly seem to want to do that, at least from what we hear. But I think we need to have some enforcement mechanisms for it to be real for people. I would be open to having the time period at Weed Beach be longer for that particular area of the beach. But with the idea that we'd revisit it if there are any issues going forward, and that if we see any type of concern for the children, that we could pull it back. But we heard from the community that's what they're wanting, and that's, you know, our jobs here is really to make sure we put in place rules in these parks that really impact and reflect what our community needs.
Pam?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate. I want to reiterate that we do not have the staff to enforce the dog program at Cherry Lawn, Tilly Pond Park, Diller Park, Weed Beach. We simply do not have that. And even if we weren't entertaining this dog winter program right now, we don't have the staff for Cherry Lawn either. You know, so we're based on signage, based on Chip, our animal control officer, to do the best he possibly can by getting to these multiple places like Woodland Park, you know, which is also another area where people don't want to leash their dogs when the rules are no off leash. So it is an issue. Enforcement is an issue. It's not just this winter program.
Sorry.
Yeah, Pam and I actually had quite a lengthy meeting with Captain Shredders, who to whom the animal control officer reports. We had a good half an hour, 45-minute meeting on the topic since our last meeting. The animal control officer, as you know, is a member of the police department. He is not a Parks and Recreation staff member. While his responsibilities include monitoring the parks for adherence, that is not the entirety of his responsibilities in town. He gets pulled into all other situations with issues between neighbors with dogs and, you know, loose dogs wandering into properties and doing damage. There's just all sorts of things that he gets involved with besides helping us with the parks. As it was stated, his bias is to not ticket people, and that was reinforced. And it was mentioned, especially right now with COVID, you know, doing so clearly requires him to approach people and become in closer physical proximity, which he would prefer not to do. So there's an extra challenge in our current health situation. The captain also told us that, you know, if there are, you know, clear violations of the rules, that any member of the community, the Parks and Rec staff, or us can call the police, and if there is availability, that they will come down and attend to the situation. But again, our police force has, you know, a lot greater priorities and things they're going to get pulled into. And he just said that, you know, there's not necessarily going to be a police officer that's going to be, you know, available to come down and attend to a situation like that. So practically speaking, we do not have existing town staff. You know, we're talking about putting money in the budget for next year, but we do not have Parks and Rec staff. The animal control officer does not work on weekends as well. He's Monday to Friday. So we have no coverage on weekends, and the police will do what they can, but, you know, we have to recognize that this is not probably what our police force should be really spending a lot of time on. And again, especially now, they're extra they are very challenged right now. You know, health crisis definitely has a ripple effect into the police department as well. So, you know, Kathy, I hear you, but we don't have a lot there. But as Pam and I had a very good conversation. We did ask to get reporting from the animal control officer on a weekly basis about what he's seeing or not seeing. I think we've gotten one report so far. I haven't seen another one since, Pam.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
We had asked to get a weekly report from Chip, just saying what he's seeing or not seeing. I think we've just only gotten one, so he probably owes us another one.
We actually just got one. I haven't had a chance to forward you, and it's literally only he ran into one couple who were walking with their leash dog in the parking lot, and he stopped them to tell them the rules that they were supposed to only be to the left side of the property in the designated area, and they said they simply would not come back.
Given this is COVID, one of the great ideas from one of our speakers was that we have a campaign, right? And we do some type of campaign to remind dog owners of their responsibilities, and maybe do it in different channels around town through social media channels, and maybe, you know, posters that we could put in the parks, put it on the website, and maybe that is also a way to encourage enforcement. Encourage other dog owners to encourage people to do the right thing when they're seeing people doing the wrong thing. If we're not going to get fines and enforcements, maybe as a community, we can try and pull it together. But that seems to be a better solution to me than canceling the program that so many people seem to use. I also think we have to, you know, I also think taking pictures, sorry, I have a dog, obviously. So taking pictures of people in the park when they're not having their dogs unleashed needs to be stopped. I think it's a violation of people's rights to privacy. I think it subjects the town to undue that. And I think it needs to be stopped. I think it's actually quite ridiculous.
I will just say that I've taken pictures on the people of the beach, but every single person I went up to and I said, this is Patty Baumgartner speaking, oh, you guys are so cute. Can I take a picture of you and your family and I'll send it to you? And thank you. And just reminded them the rules. Again, I told you they all had masks on. I think one of the problems is sometimes we're always focused on what people are doing wrong instead of what they're doing right. So if you'd like, as part of the campaign, we can start to send you pictures every time we see somebody down there doing it right and give you a timestamp. But I didn't want to inundate you with emails because you get a lot. But, you know, we hear these one-offs of negative and you're not hearing the positive. So I think part of what's one of the Parks and Rec folks said earlier about doing a campaign and making it a community event and doing social media, we can really do a big positive branding thing about this underutilized asset. And then with that, you know, Jamie Gore is so funny with her phrases, like she has at Highland Park, neighbors, right? That we can use some of those cute phrases and things like that to remind people about the times and the space. But I will say they have to make sense. And so I would highly encourage you to allow this off-leash time during the winter months to be till dusk, to allow, again, people who are working and going down there late after lunch, and people who are getting their kids right after school and going down to take advantage of that. And the last thing is, I do think I do not understand why we can't allow people to walk their dogs as part of their walk down from, whether it's Post Road or Fitch or Nicholson or Nearwater, to do the loop within the parking lot and coming back. There was a dad who said to me the other day, his wife drops the kids off at paddle at night, the paddle lessons, and he picks them up, and he's just finishing work, so he walks his dog around the parking lot 3 times until the kids are finished with paddles. So he's multitasking on leash.
Pam?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate again that it's Unleashed and Leashed program, and that we have started somewhat of a campaign. I mean, Jamie Gore has had a pretty strong presence on social media and has taken a picture of our mascot, Peanut, following the rules or shouting out some funny thing about not following the rules. And so, you know, we have started to try to get that message. And I do want to also say too, in regards to our staff, you know, the last meeting we had, the commission meeting in November, we literally may have had 4 days to get it together, to get all the signs out there, because we had like only a few days before Thanksgiving and we were scrambling. If you can imagine all the time that we spent trying to get those signs out there so that people would understand and it would be clear. And then our park staff trying to put rope up there, trying to designate areas. So it's not an easy task by any means, but I do agree that we could do better.
I thank you for that. I think you did an amazing job, Pam and Jamie, getting that out. And then what I would encourage is, I think it was Shannon Silsby who was saying, really, let's use social media and take it a step further. I follow the Parks and Rec social media, but I wouldn't say it's, you know, Darien wide, so to speak. So if we can start to get people to post it on their social media websites and things like that, just to get the message out, expand it.
Yeah, I think you've done a great job of, I think you guys are posting on the Facebook Darien and Mom's page from time to time. I think you guys have done a great job for doing it. I think we just need to do, to Patty's point, just do volume. Trying to find more channels and more ways to do it. Maybe get Jamie to send some of it out. But I think you have been doing a great job. I read a lot of your social media channel stuff, and you do try and get as many people as possible, but we need to have just more volume and more points of contact with people so they see the rules.
Lori?
Yes,
Yeah.
Mike. Yes.
So first off, I support the extension of the program through the season. I'm also in favor of extending the hours of the day from dawn till dusk, and I'm in favor of, and I think it's probably just, it's almost kind of like a bug in a computer program here, where we have this issue of people walking their dogs on the parking lot. It kind of as a violation here. I mean, it just makes sense that, you know, folks are there. I don't see, I also agree with Mary Louise. I don't, it's a little confusing to me why we have an issue with people walking their dogs on the parking lot leashed. So I'm in support of that as well. I just think everybody, I thought the folks who came out to speak publicly this evening were very articulate. I think what they had to offer is very compelling. I'm in support and in agreement with all of what was said, and I think we should just move on. And I think, Pam, if it's not clear, look, I'm assuming it is the message of trying to just sort out how we get clearer signage and just, you know, communicate better to the community has to be very clear to you guys at this point, given all the comments. So I think we should just, you know, if you'd like, I'm happy to make a motion to vote. I'll leave it to you, Lori, but I think we should just move on. I think we should go ahead, kind of close the books on this, move on, allow the community to enjoy this wonderful amenity. And the only other reminder to the community is, you know, you could see how this particular commission has struggled with this now for a few years. You know, and Lori pointed out that I kind of made the comment that it's a privilege. I think it's a privilege because it's something that can very easily be taken away. And it's, you know, it's something that I think other folks have commented that, you know, not all of our neighbors, you know, feel the same way that we as dog lovers feel. So I do think there's a responsibility on the part of those of us who are kind of taking advantage of this privilege to respect the fact that, you know, we have members of the community who don't feel the same way that we do. Whether we can take the next, you know, the next step and ask folks to kind of police one another. You know, I'd like to think that that's possible, but I also understand how folks might be uncomfortable with that as well. But I'm simply in favor of moving forward with it. I've been in favor of it since its inception. I think it's a wonderful program. And so, Lori, I'll leave it to you if you'd like me to make a motion to move it on, or if you'd like to continue the discussion.
You can certainly put the motion on the table and then second it, and we can have any follow-up discussion.
Yeah, so I move that we vote to extend the program from November through the end of March. That we also extend the hours of the day from dawn till dusk. I don't, just parenthetically here, I'm not sure that it makes a difference whether it's dawn till dusk or 9 a.m. till dusk. I'm not sure that we're going to have Chip or anybody out there trying to figure out whether folks are doing the right thing from dawn till 9. So I would suggest we extend the program from dawn till dusk. And I also suggest we just kind of, modify the program to allow for folks to walk their dogs on leash within the parking lot area. If I got it right there. So I'm open to anybody who would like to amend that, but otherwise I present that as a motion.
I'll second it. This is Sarah.
Okay. Amy, you've been quiet. Anything you'd like to add? No? Yes, no? Jake, you're on mute.
I'm good.
You're good. Okay. Okay. My concern about the dawn was that, with the school traffic and such in the morning, and that there are a lot of parents. There's the buses, the bus pickup. There's 3 rounds of bus pickup on near water, multiple locations. A lot more people I've been noticing are walking their children to school. So my concern was really around adding traffic on near water in the, prior to Henley School, in the high school, and the middle going in. We do have the same issue at, when the kids get out of Henley about 2:45, we see that as well. So that was my concern on the extended hours, was traffic and traffic safety with very narrow sidewalks.
I agree with, I like Mike's motion. I would like to see if we could talk about it every month and make sure that it's something that we get regular reports on, and kind of keep the right to make changes if needed, depending on, what we find out. If we're finding, the hours are, not good for other aspects. There's a lot of times things we put out something and then there's unintended consequences. And I just want to make sure that we don't limit ourselves by, doing it wholesale. I'd like to make sure it's always on the agenda for each meeting. We don't have to make a decision on it, to make changes, but I would like to reserve the right to make changes if we find that there's a problem with enforcement or anything else that might arise, if that's okay. I don't know what people think. But I'm okay with extending the hours and including the parking lot. I think those are great options for walkers that can then park there and then walk, on near water if they need.
I think it would be helpful if we could have, I think it would be helpful if we could have the signage say that the program's to the 31st, Susan. Just so it's clear when people know what the dates are. And that we don't
I'm
have
okay
to,
with keeping the longer,
if
the season. I just want to make sure that as a commission, we are vigilant about getting those reports and making sure that if anything does come up, we should address them right away, because that's going to be what leads to success of a program like this, is when we're kind of communicating with everybody that's using the facility and, dealing with issues as it goes, so that we're not at the end saying, oh God, all those people did this and this, and now I don't want to do this program next year. I think that happened a little last year, I feel. And I feel like this year, I just want to nip anything in the bud quickly so that we can offer this as an ongoing thing and not have to say it's a pilot every year. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I think
Just
that's a great
and
addition.
because we're just an unprecedented time, we don't know what, the next few months are going to bring. So we should be, flexible.
Well, maybe one way to clarify, Susan, what I think, what you're asking, which I agree with, is I think we need to acknowledge that we're adding a set of tasks to Pam and her organization. And that set of tasks now is, increased vigilance around monitoring, providing feedback back to the commission. So we have a kind of regular and ongoing updates as to how this is going. There's a sensitivity around it. So I think rather than just thinking we're kind of approving something and moving on, we're approving something, adding something to the scope of what we're asking Pam and her staff to do at the same time. So I agree with you, all of what you're saying, Susan, and I think that the task falls to Pam and her team to kind of to do what I think what you're proposing, if I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah, I think it is. I do want to put the onus on them because at the end of the day, they need to maintain that space. They need to make sure that it's a safe place. I mean, we can't just say that we're allowing this to happen and then, if something should happen in terms of like, any COVID regulations that might come about or any changes, we need to be monitoring it. It's an amenity that if it doesn't work well, it affects everybody that needs to use the space. So I want to, I'd like to get a report, and if I know that Pam gave us a report that included some feedback from the paddle court attendant, I liked it. It was good to hear what he saw. I mean, because we're not always going to all be there. And I think that we should know, is it being used? How is it being used? If he's seen anything happen that he should, I'd like to know, if there was an occurrence that was negative. I'm not saying we hear one negative thing and we say no more program, but let's see if there was something we could have done as a commission, maybe in our rules that would have prevented it, or things like that. So that's where I'm going. I'm sorry to add more work to you, Pam, but I feel like you're so passionate about this program, and I think that you want to see it as a success too. So I hope it's not too invasive or intrusive, at too much to put on your plate at this time.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we have to really be tough on is the dogs anywhere near, and especially off leash near the playground. That to me is, we have to be extremely cautious about it. And I did witness that last year. There was a woman sitting with her dog right in the playground with children all around. And I did not take a photo because I did not want to take a photo of people's children, but that to me was, that's just not acceptable. So things like that, I think we'd have to, if we find that kind of thing going on and the dog's migrating down towards the playground, that, we have to be revisiting that. And certainly not in the playground.
Is it okay if I say, if I just have a suggestion?
No, but I will allow it this evening because I think some public input here would be helpful.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. Just two comments or suggestions, I guess, that I thought I would make. The first is to your point, Laurie, about the traffic. One thought that might cover a few bases here with issues that I'm hearing is that I know at Row 8 and Dog Park since the pandemic started, they've limited the number of people who can come to, I think it is 25. So maybe with whatever the new or revised signage is, maybe you put a number on there for the maximum number of people who can come at a time, which maybe then that's an extra rule that people have to be cognizant of, that maybe will make them also be more aware of the other rules. And secondly, I am on social media a ton for work, and I didn't know about the social media account. So I just wonder too, maybe a newspaper article or something like that just gets the word out about the rules, about changes that may be made to the program might be helpful as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm public, as you know. I'm not part of your committee, but can I make a suggestion too?
I will allow it.
Okay, so understanding that you need extra help with the, with taking care of the park, well, specifically to, Weed Beach. I have a suggestion to help out. What if we were to get high school students who wanted to do it, who felt comfortable doing it, to sign up for a program where they would go down for an hour and monitor and get community service hours?
Be great. We need someone to raise their hand and do it.
Okay, so you guys would be amenable to that, it sounds like, right? I mean, is that right?
I'm happy to help too. Yeah, okay. I'm happy to help too, with Kathy. I have a school, and I think it's a great idea.
Okay, great. Well, then maybe you and I can be in touch with each other to see what we can do. I don't know how to get something like that, community service hours, And the other thing I wanted to say is
we have to talk. No, I was going to say we can talk to Ellen Dunn, and she can tell us if it's possible.
Oh, Ellen Dunn, right. Okay. So we can go maybe together to do that. The other thing is, you know, I feel like we do a good job at Cherry Lawn with our group of people stick together and we monitor that park such that we pick other people's, you know, if someone's walking and they don't pick up, we'll pick up after them. And that's how it should be. I think, you know, right now we do not have a problem on Weed Beach. We have a problem with fish on Weed Beach. You can have a fish fry down there. There's so many fish on Weed Beach, but you know, people are being very respectful. And I think all it takes, instead of more rules, I think people are pulling their hair out because of all the rules that we are dealing with because of COVID. I just feel like together, the community, the dog walking community can also take the Weed Beach, the Cherry Lawn model and bring it to Weed Beach. You see, where we're all taking care of each other. So kind of like not an unofficial commission, I guess, where if I'm down there, if I see somebody, just like you all are saying, then I raise my hand and say, hey guys, you need to pick up. So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I think that would be great. And I think clear signs, as you already know from my letter, just keep it simple, you know, I think you'd be really onto something, a big improvement. And a huge thank you for so many of you supporting this. I think it's great. And we'll do our job to keep it clean. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, commission members, any more discussion? Are we ready to vote? Because we still have a budget to approve this evening. We ready to go? Yes, nods? Yes, we're ready to vote? Yes, okay, Jamie, go ahead. I will vote yes this time.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Are we including the monitoring and stuff language into the motion that Mike's already presented, or we're not including it?
I don't have it included right now.
How about if we just include that the motion also includes monthly reporting from Parks and Recs back to the commission on the prior month's activity of the program. Maybe just we'll find it.
We don't want to include any language about if they're about making changes if needed.
I think it goes without saying.
Okay.
Honestly, I think we have that latitude to do that, which goes back to my point that this is some of these programs are fragile in a way, and that's why they need to be nurtured. I think people need to be mindful that there's a sensitivity there that it can very easily be taken away. So just a reminder of that, but I don't think the motion needs, personally, I don't think the motion needs to include that. I believe we had Sarah. Did we have Sarah second?
Yes, sir.
I did.
Okay, great. I thought I heard you. Thanks.
Susan?
Yay.
Kathy?
Yes.
Mary Louise?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
That's everybody.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your engagement on this topic this evening. And also please remind people there's no dogs anywhere at Pear Tree. Okay, no dogs anywhere at Pear Tree. Okay.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
For your support. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. We need to move on to Pam's budget.
Pam,
Where would you like to start?
Pam, I have one question before you start. Is there a reason why you did not include the pickleball monies that you were able to raise this summer? And what your projections would be for that going forward?
Yes, I removed it because our discussion surrounding that court last month was that the fundraising would be in this current fiscal year. The capital budget in front of you now is for fiscal year 21-22,
Okay,
starting July 1st.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Lori, do you want me just to
Yes,
start on the, okay.
Yes, can you run through the operating budget, please?
Okay. So there's a couple different changes that were made since we last spoke about it. And I'm trying to take my notes here. For instance, I had added in the pest control that was not, I added in up to, let's see, I added $15,000 so that we would have a total of 20. And to answer someone's question about the pest control is that we simply cannot request funds right now for a company because there has to be a bidding process. So it's not as if we could just get this company to start in 2 weeks. It's a job that's over $10,000. It would have to go out to bid. And so there is definitely a process behind it. So I'm going to point out some highlights. One highlight in the revenue budget was that after discussing this with Jim Coughlin, we decided to go into it with a flat, the revenue being kind of flat, considering we had lost some revenue and then kind of gained some, but because of COVID, I had $680,000 revenue in program fees, but I dropped that to 600. And just to see how we'll end up flushing out at the end of this year. In the expenses, some of the other changes that we put in the security, obviously we talked about that. That's having a seasonal security, and to answer Susan Daly's question that she had. She wanted to know what months that patrol security monitor would be. That would be from May through September. And that's the additional 32,000. We had some AED equipment in there under facility, rescue equipment that we added in, additional $2,000. I had a question from a commission member about seasonal and temporary salaries, and that it's mentioned, it's repeated in the operating budget. And the reason that seasonal and temporary salary is repeated is because in the administration side of the budget, we have $8,000 set aside for part-time seasonal staff that works in our office to help with programming, selling beach permits, etc. And that's in the springtime every year. Then I have a seasonal and temporary salary that is that works with the parks crew from June through August. College kids that come back, and we use additional help with at least two seasonal. And then seasonal and temporary salary, if you go down the budget a little bit there, that $23,800 is seasonal beach staff, including lifeguards and beachfront management. So that's to answer that. Does anyone have any questions that you want to ask me? I was kind of pointing out some of the changes, but I don't know if anybody has any direct questions. I added in mulch under facility maintenance materials because we are in dire need of some additional mulch around the playgrounds, but that's only a $1,500. Oh, and there's one other change. There was an additional $8,000 that I set aside for maintenance and repair of the 2 concession stands. So as we move into looking to request additional funds for the concession equipment, I felt we needed to set aside some money for repairs, maintenance, replacement, And then at the end of this fiscal year, we'll be able to reassess, or at the end of this fiscal 22, we'll be able to reassess that 8,000, whether that's a, too high of a number, or if we can reduce it.
Pam, does the maintenance repair amount cover some touch up to the pear tree pavilion that was touched on this evening and by the RTM committee and a few other members of the community? Just, some painting to that building. Do you have that in this budget? Mirrors over the bathroom fixed? And you were going to talk to Jim about whether the water fountain could be fixed. I thought you thought maybe there was a piping issue.
Right. To answer your first question, yes. Our parks maintenance budget line item does includes additional parks and facilities whole townwide. So that includes pear tree. So of course, if there's fixtures that are broken or the soap thing is broken, we certainly can upgrade those and fix those things. I don't know that they need mirrors. The mirrors are, to my knowledge, aren't cracked but if they were, we could use that account and fix them. Okay. As for the water fountain, I did reach out to Jim today, but he was too busy with getting ready for the storm, so he didn't reply. But I do recall him talking about the pipes, underground pipes to the water fountain. So I just have to revisit him with that. And again, I haven't researched a water fountain, but I can't imagine that's big budget item. So I think we have additional funds in there that we can take a look at those simple improvements.
Okay.
But other than that, I think it's pretty, those are the only budget drivers here, which is the security patrol monitor, the additional $8,000 to keep a watch on the concession equipment and the concession stand area, and the increase in the pest control account. Those are really the budget drivers here.
Yeah. Going back to the pear tree expenses, they would be under maintenance, like doing a faucet is a maintenance thing versus something that would be put in capital. I'm just, I wasn't sure. If you replace the faucet, is that a maintenance thing or a capital thing?
Anything capital have to be at least over $5,000.
So like doing mirrors and like the faucet, there are no mirrors at Pear Tree. Cara's picture shows no mirrors that she took and submitted to us. So I'm not saying that would cost $5,000 either. So I just vaguely remember the part of the reason that I think they might have been missing was because of potential vandalism, I think it was, or something happened with vandalism, I think, with those mirrors, but I can't remember now. I'd have to go through my records. I think that's why they're missing. And anyway, so I just wasn't sure where that would fit. If it's under 5,000, you could put it in your budget, but you only have 8,000 in your budget, and that's for concession and maintenance of those buildings, and that's a pretty low number.
No, $8,000 is not for that. 8,000 was strictly for us moving forward with concession equipment, and as well as the concession stand, because typically our vendor was taking care of all that. So if one of his pieces of equipment stopped working and he had to get it serviced, he had to pay for that. So our facilities maintenance materials and our facility repair and maintenance, we have $85,000 or just about $86,000 for repair and maintenance of the facility.
Yeah, that was the question I had for you about the $8,000 that when I asked you in our materials, you asked for the questions. That's why I asked you what it was for, and I thought you said it was also for the building, but I think you just meant the concession equipment.
The equipment and the concession stand within the facility. So
okay, so that's like painting it if you had to paint
or
it inside.
The screen doors had a hole in it. We had to put the screen door. It would happen to be within the concession stand of that bathhouse facility.
Okay, got it.
Right?
Thank you.
Yep.
That's the confusion I had. I was like, wow, that would be really a low amount to allocate towards that.
Yeah.
Impossible, probably.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, other questions for Pam on the operating budget? So it's pretty much baseline with those few areas where you've notably bumped it up. There's really continuum of existing efforts.
Exactly.
And can you elaborate again? You decided to keep the program fees at the 600 and pare that back. And why was that? Is it the feeling that this year they're abnormally high because people are not going anywhere, but then other things got canceled? So what was the thinking about that?
The thinking is that, yes, it's a very unusual year. Here we are with a very uncertain spring ahead of us again, not knowing where we're going to end. And we just felt it was just feeling like it's very uncertain, and we're not sure where we're going. So we thought, let's just keep it flat rather than being, I came in at 680,000 as if we were going to be making $80,000 in a normal year. And it certainly isn't normal. And so we just felt it was a safer thing to do, just to leave it at the 600,000 revenue. I mean, I certainly could put in 625, thinking that we would come ahead 25,000 off a normal, our other, we came in at 2020 at 655,000.
Yeah, because I mean, for instance, building rent, it looks like we're way off year to date.
Mm-hmm. We are. We didn't rent the facility all summer long.
Yep.
And we may not rent it for the rest of the season if we're standing by the state guidelines.
Right, but this would be from next July to the 5th, which in theory, we're all hoping that, the vaccines are effective, that, wouldn't we think that those revenues would come back? Or you're just saying you'd rather?
I don't think it really, it's a number, right? It's something that we're hoping to achieve. So, we were told to really look at this, to budget as if it's going to be a normal year. So if it were going to be a normal year, seeing that we finished 2020 with 655, that's where I came in at 680, when I originally showed you this budget. So I really don't have a problem putting 680 in there, even if we came in at 640. It's just a projected number. It's something that we're looking to try to achieve.
So I mean, it's a budget though. So I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Pam, quick question. Under your highlights in your report, you talked about the reserve accounts for the budget.
Yes.
Are those in this budget that we're looking at, or is it in the capital? Where were those accounts located? Where did they reside?
Capital.
So those are all capital. Okay. So you won't have a reserve account in the capital. We could talk about it later then.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So Lori, what's your feeling on that? To boost it as a normal year?
So hard to know. Maybe you split the difference.
Mm-hmm. And come in at 660, 665.
Commission members, what do you think?
I think we've come in at 665. I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
I think I have to defer to you, Pam, on this.
Yeah, I think 665. This means that we'd be 10,000 above what we were in 2020. If we hold on to all the programs that we're currently doing now, and traditionally what we try to do is drop the ones that aren't doing anything, and perhaps in the last couple of years haven't had registration, or they're doing poorly, and we try to look to add new programs that are maybe new trends. So that's what we typically try to do.
I mean, what we might also find now is that since people have had the opportunity to get exposed to town programs that maybe they weren't thinking about in the past or whatever,
That's very true.
They'll be more likely to come back and say, wow, I never really knew there was all this great stuff I could do right here in town, that I could go take yoga at the beach, or I could, do this or that. So now that people have been exposed to the programming, it might build on itself.
I have to, and it's happening. Like our summer programs were extremely busy. Our paddle facility is extremely busy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. So I think coming in at 665 will give us a good idea about.
Okay. Any other questions on the operating budget?
No.
No. Okay, then we'll need a motion. We have to approve it, correct?
Yes.
Yes. If someone would make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Oh, okay, Susan and Mary Louise, do you want a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I just want to mention that I was happy that Pam requested the questions ahead of time so that she could be prepared. I think it really helped organize this discussion, and we got through it a little more quickly.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Pam, for being prescient on that.
I'm sorry, Miss.
No, I'm just ready for Jamie to take the roll call.
Gotcha.
Lori?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes, you heard me, sorry.
It's okay. I saw you. Amy?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes. Yes.
And Sarah?
Yes.
That's everyone.
Okay, so moving on to the capital. A few changes since we last met. One being that our playground upgrade program, where we set aside $15,000 each year, the last few years now. Maybe it's the last 3 years we've been doing that. And our tree replacement program, which we were putting $5,000 aside each year, and our equipment reserve. So the Board of Finance met, and although they're very supportive of our capital improvement projects, these particular reserve accounts were accumulating, as they should. That's what they were meant for. So when we had a big ticket dump truck for $60,000 just recently in this current fiscal year, we didn't have to itemize it in this capital improvement project. We had the equipment reserve. We would put together figures in our equipment reserve out 5 years to try to understand how much money we would ask for each year, so that by the time we made the big ask, we had the money and there was still more money in there, additional money. They really would they're only keeping 2 accounts that way, 2 departments, the fire department and the public works department. They're going to allow those because they typically have equipment requests of over $100,000 each items. We typically don't. Although we have $100,000 project in this current 5-year capital improvement project, which is pushed out to 23, 24. That's the only one we have. Typically, we're all pretty much under 100,000 for equipment. So in order to be more transparent, they would like us to ask for what we're going to be using the money for, rather than letting it, yes.
So can I just clarify? I'm sorry to cut you off there. So if we just take either one of those, are you saying that there's a reserve account that has been accumulating over the X number of years that has a certain sum of money in it? So what is the sum in those 2 accounts? What is the balance of those accounts? I'm not aware of that. That's been the case.
Right. The equipment reserve, I believe, and I don't have it in front of me, but we've spent $60,000 this year on a dump truck. And I want to say perhaps we have $90,000 left.
So you're saying the equipment replacement program line item has a reserve account with $90,000, with a balance of $90,000.
Which we will no longer have.
So they're taking are they taking what's left and they're just sweeping it and putting it back into the general fund?
Right. So they don't want to hold on to that money right now. They'd rather for us to ask, we'll still do our 6-year or five to 6 year capital improvement plan so that we can see what we're going to be asking for in the next 5 years. But they would prefer not to accumulate that money.
Just curious, by what mechanism did that money accumulate? Like, is it money that's been budgeted in the capital plan, set aside in the capital plan that wasn't spent?
Yes. We all have approved each year. This year, before I wiped that line item out, I was going to be requesting $35,000. And then you could see 5 years out, 35,000, 45,000, back 35,000, maybe 50,000 the following year. So we continue to add money.
Yeah, no, I guess it's a miss on my part, but I guess the question that it is, so basically you're saying we spent 60 on a truck, we had 150 essentially. We spent 50 and we spent 60. I'm sorry, we spent 60 and we have 90 remaining. I think the question that it begs is, maybe it's a stupid question, but like, why weren't we spending the money that we had allocated to us? In other words, if we asked for money, we were given money, what's prevented us from spending the money that we've been given?
It was a reserve. So when I got here 5 years ago, we had this reserve. It was already built up, and that was what we were asked to do.
Okay. So you inherited a reserve.
Yes, and we were asked to continue to fund it because although we can project out 5 years to the best of our knowledge, it could be that another dump truck goes offline 3 years before we anticipated it doing so, and therefore we would have the money to fix it or to replace it.
Yeah, just since I've been on the commission, I wasn't aware. I mean, it was something that we haven't been adding money to these line items that we haven't been spending that would have summed to $150,000. So I think what you're telling me is I think the explanation is you inherited a reserve.
Yes.
And Board of Finance is basically kind of saying, okay, let's take that away from you. Not to say you may not get money when you need it, but they're going to just take the reserve away. It's going to go to a general fund.
Yes, and it's not just Parks and Rec. Right, it's all the departments that had reserves besides DPW and the fire department, but they want them to go out 20 years. So that's what's changed for them. So instead of the typical 6-year is what in front of you is a 6-year capital plan, they want them to go out 20 years. So I inherited that, but the commission approved the newer ones that we implemented, which were the playground upgrade and the tree maintenance. And the tree maintenance would continue to put in $5,000 each year. And quite honestly, we had plans to use some of that tree money in the last few years at Pear Tree, but then at Weed Beach. And Weed Beach, we end up getting donated trees. Pear Tree, we decided to say not right now because we're going to be doing a project soon. So we were really not using the money, although we had plans to use it. Like right now, we want to use that Tilly Pond because we've removed multiple trees. But instead, we will have to make sure that in either this budget or I can still go to Board of Finance in this current fiscal year and request that I have that money based on the fact that I was going to use it in the spring, which I plan on doing for the playground upgrade. So I don't have that $30,000 that accumulated in that. I planned on using 15 of that for this spring. So I plan on going to Board of Finance to request it.
Can I just ask one other question? Up until now, up until the point at which this reserve is going to get swept away, so let's just say that there's a $90,000 sitting in a reserve for equipment now, right? Because it hasn't been taken away yet. What is the mechanism for you to spend that? Like, do you have to come back to the commission and advise the commission that you're going to spend $90,000 that's sitting in your reserve, or that's just available to your team to go ahead and spend as?
It is not available to us right now without going to the Board of Finance and requesting that we want to utilize that money because we had plans to. So if it's not in the 6-year capital,
I'm good now. I think I understand how this is working.
Right.
So
if it's not in the 6-year capital, we would not be requesting unless it was a surprise.
Okay.
And we had to, yeah. So.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
you're
for
welcome.
explaining that.
But Pam, what I'm not understanding is June 30th comes, whatever money we had set aside for tree replacement is gone. The budget here, we have we're not showing that we're going to be looking for any money for trees for this whole 6-year period. So how are we, and I assume there's a difference between tree replacement and tree maintenance. I would think the maintenance would be in the operating budget if, we realize that a tree's dead and it's got to come down. I would think that would be the operating budget.
I agree with you. I agree that this tree replacement line item right now needs some money in it. I agree. I didn't pull that out 5 years.
Okay.
Since learning. So my suggestion would be that we put in $5,000 for this fiscal, this 22, add $5,000 for this request. And I think I would bump it out to 2024 and put in another 5.
So you haven't adjusted this based upon this new reality yet, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But does that have to come with this? Are they going to say, in other words, specifically, well, gee, you're just asking for 5,000. Again, it's really the same difference. Or are they going to say, I need $4,250 because I know I need to put 2 new trees in Cherry Lawn? Are they going to be looking for specificity as opposed to just, we want to put some trees somewhere? Because then,
no, I think they're looking for detail. Specificity. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So I know I sat down with Jim Flynn and we talked about these additional trees. So although I don't have an exact number on the trees right now, I just throwing that 5,000 saying I think that's realistic because they are expensive and they have to be, and they have to be put in the ground as well. So there's some cost to that as well. And I think it will give me, I can round this out by the time I meet with Kate, Jamie, and Jen. I can get more specific numbers than this 5, but I think 5 is a healthy number to start with.
Okay. And then the similar question on the playground equipment. It sounds like they don't want us to just say we want 5,000 a year for playground. They're going to say, 1 year we want 8,000 because we know that the Weed Beach playground needs X, or that, the Baker Hill needs that. They don't want a general, we'd like to add a new piece every year.
Right. So for instance, I have a quote right now for Cherry Lawn to replace the old swing set in the 2 to 5 year olds section. That comes out to $14,700.
Okay.
So I plan on going to Board of Finance to request those funds that we had accumulated in there to use for the spring. And then I put in on the 22-23 an additional 15 because I'd like to replace the swing set in the 5 to 12 year old area. And then we'd have to get a little bit more specific about the sunshades that we were looking to do at McGuan because the black rubber gets too hot. So we probably have to get a solid number for that and put it in for 23-24. or 22, 23, we can make those decisions then too. But yeah, so more specific, project per project.
And how does that apply to equipment replacement?
We don't have the you mean the reserve, you mean? The
No,
equipment
just
reserve?
in terms of your capital budget, are you anticipating that you need to deal with any equipment replacement, major equipment, because those are big ticket items potentially out 21, 22?
Right, so the reason I didn't add anything there, Mike, was because now if you go down to the bottom of the sheet, you'll see that instead of putting anything in the equipment replacement program, I've added the equipment that we were requesting. So the Toro Ground Master, which is 27,000, and the stand-on blower is 12,000. Those are actually listed in this capital as detail. So if you go out to 2023, you'll see 75,000 for the loader.
Got it.
Right? So it's specific.
So you'll now be breaking it out item by item.
Yes. And we also carry a 6-year equipment replacement capital. So within our office. So every year we sit down, we look at all our inventory and put together a 6-year plan that would ultimately make it to this list. So right now,
not having,
go ahead.
I was going to say that not having like things like the playground equipment or anything that account and the tree, it kind of hampers your ability to kind of react. Like if something came up in the fiscal year that you were trying to address something, you'd have to wait until the capital came up and then be specific, right? Or you'd have to be more proactive and say, you know, it looks like the McQuan flooring is starting to go and I'm going to, put that in for next year. I just think that puts you kind of the onus on you to be better at pinpointing our needs, because now you don't have like a fund where you can kind of tap if something did come up.
Well, it's true, but I do think that it's achievable because when you're looking at a larger project, typically you're going to plan for it. Whereas if there's a change that needs to be made in the park, like the tire swing needs to be lowered or it needs maintenance or it needs to be changed, we have the money for that in our facilities maintenance line item.
I just feel like sometimes when they see like that we have a bunch of things on a list and you used to have that fund, we didn't have to put certain playground things in it because that could be taken care of by the fund. And now they're going to say, wow, you have 6 items. We can't give you all 6. You can only give you 3. And some of these, I mean, I'm just thinking that in the long run, your capital budget will be shortchanged just because of those optics, because you're used to getting only a handful of each item. And your list is going to get longer because now you have to list more specific equipment that needs to be replaced, each time. And I know that a lot of times we come back and we'd be like, let's give them like 6 things, and half the time we get half of them. We never got all of them for obvious reasons. And I just think your list is going to be longer and your needs are going to be put off a lot more in the past.
Could be
you know
true.
What I'm saying? So I think that's something you need to think about going forward, that if we do have anything, especially as it relates to safety and things that are wearing out, with playgrounds especially, something to think about. And with the tree stuff, I think we were very fortunate that there were donations in the past, but I know at least the one club that used to Tree Conservancy, which did give us some of those trees. The garden club, that's the only thing, is I don't think we're going to have as much help as we've had.
Yeah, we've had quite a few very generous donations from the Tree Conservancy and Garden Club at Cherry Lawn and Tilly Pond Park. And this is why some of the money did get used. Okay, so if you don't have any more questions about that, Susan, you still have a question? I can't hear you. It looks like, I think we might have lost your line because you have a different mark next to your name. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But if we go on with the current capital, we have the 66,000 for repainting Weed Beach tennis courts. And as Jim mentioned, we're into year 8 when they suggested 5 to 7. Jim, am I correct with that, or is it year 9?
Come back. We'll be into year 9, I think, by the time we get this, if we get this approved.
Okay. So that's a high priority. And 82,000 for Tilly Pond, dredging the pond and widening the main path, which we've been talking about for quite a few years now. Woodland Park, parking repairs, 20,000. And then Cherry Lawn Tennis Court resurface, which again, that number is 250,000 because it's post-tension concrete. It's the same material that's used at Weed Beach for the tennis courts that are really beautiful after going on year 9. So they last longer, they're more expensive, but they last longer. $15,000 for the gazebo roof at Cherry Lawn, which you all have witnessed needs to be replaced.
So can I ask a question about the roof and that 15? Does the 15 also include, I think there were some stairs and the ramp look like they needed some attention as well. So will the 15,000 kind of cover a bit of a replacement for some of those boards, or is it solely the roof?
Well, we were solely looking at the roof because we felt that minor repairs can be done by the crew. And the roof was...
Okay, so the minor repairs done by the crew are not included in this. This is solely the roof. This is the expense associated with just the roof. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then you're welcome. And then the final 2 are the equipment. And I did get some, okay, yeah, Susan said her audio is not reconnecting. All right. And
Actually,
so that total will then come to 477 if I add in that tree replacement program, be 477 as you know, compared to the 127.5 that we were approved this current fiscal year. So does anybody have any suggestions or?
Well, just a question on the playground equipment then. What happens with a line item for the playground equipment? What are you doing with it? I misunderstood what you were doing with that.
Okay, it's the same thing, Mike. Just think of it as the equipment reserve. We have to be more specific as to what type of project we plan on doing going forward.
No, I think the question is, what are you asking us to vote on in terms of the number for playground? Because there's no number here now.
Right, there's no number there because I plan on going to Board of Finance to get the 15,000 for this spring. Right, so and that would be see the 15,000 in the 2020.
I do. Yep.
That 15 I was planning on using and now it's gone. So I'm going to request it for this spring. And then if you look at 22-23, I added another 15,000 there. And that would be a specific project, as I said, whether it be the shades at McGuan or, you know, like for instance, I could probably, oh, no, I'm sorry. I changed it. Yes, yep. So I had changed it and got rid of the reserve and put a specific project. Does that make sense, Mike?
Yep. Well, I'm hearing what you're saying. My only question for you is, do you feel that this kind of adequately represents the things that you feel you need to be doing in terms of upgrade to playground equipment? Because up until now, you've had a reserve that you thought you could draw down on. That's gone. It's going to go away.
Right. That was brand new, so it was nothing that I inherited. We started it here in the last 3 years, and it has served us well. But it's a little bit more challenging because we have to look 6 years out, and we have to, rather than being able to change components of things and upgrade them, we may be looking at larger projects. So we may look at, say, 4 years from now, we want to replace Baker's whole unit. And that unit now would be $100,000 replacement, because we wouldn't be looking just to replace the slide, you know.
But it doesn't look like for 21, 22 that you have any playground equipment.
For 21, 22, I put it in as 22, 23 because I'm going to request the 15 this spring, which would take care, I didn't put anything in for 21, 22. I could, I just have to be specific as to what I'm going to do with it.
Okay.
So your strategy is you're going to go and request that the Board of Finance, even though they're going to take away your reserves, will at least allow you to get that chunk of your reserve.
Correct.
For you to do something in 2021.
Correct. And I also have to really think about my time too. So when you look at all these projects right here, depending on whether they all get approved or not, one might be taking place in the summer, one in the fall, one in the following spring. So, sometimes you have to spread out those projects from alternate years.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I guess it sounds like you're pretty confident that you're going to get some chunk of that $15,000. And that's why you're not putting any other money in there.
Absolutely, because I had it specifically, I meant to do it in the fall, but because the basketball court got pushed into the fall, it just took precedence of my time and the amount of equipment and activity that was going on there. So I opted to push it out to the spring, and then lo and behold, they pulled the money.
Okay.
But I do feel confident that they'll be happy about the improvement, and they'll be very willing to give the money, is my feeling. I don't know that we're going to get 477,000 this year. I don't know about that, but we'll certainly try.
Well, I just think we've got to make the argument that, we've seen that the demands on the parks have been very heavy. People are using them. We've had a lot of new people move to town. We have new apartments being built.
True.
And we need to argue strenuously that we need to maintain the facilities that we have. And if our tennis courts need to be maintained and repaired, that needs to be supported. We shouldn't have these facilities and let them deteriorate. And that gets back to the idea of the standard of care.
Correct.
I mean, we saw what happened with the basketball court the minute that thing got built. I mean, it was overrun with activity to the point where we've sadly had to limit it for now.
Right. Well, that concludes the capital improvement plan. It's ever changing at times, but I think that the list that we have for 21, 22 is pretty solid.
Any more questions for Pam, or does someone can someone make a motion to accept the capital budget as proposed?
I move that we accept the capital budget as proposed.
Okay, Mary Louise, second.
Ask a quick question. I might have missed it because I got off sorry, on our meeting.
Sure.
So you have the priorities as 1 and 2, right? So when you present it to the Board of Finance, or Kate, who do you present to? The Board of Finance first?
No, first it goes to Kate and Jamie, then it goes to the Board of Selectmen as a whole.
Right. So they look.
Then it'll go to the Board of Finance and then the RTM.
So they look at your 1s and 2s, right? And if you tell them that the ones are your first priority, I'm just trying to figure out like is there a strategy that you're going for here in terms of what gets approved and not?
Well, they had a matrix that we had to follow, and with that matrix, sometimes the two, it just fell into the two. It wasn't me choosing the two. It was a matrix that showed that it was a safety issue, or it was just a replacement, or it was an additional project. So it kind of let you follow as to how you would put that one or two in.
I just felt like in the past that there were times in the commission were the people we said, these might be 1-2s, but we as a commission believe that it should go in this order in terms of priority.
Okay, yeah, we didn't do that. You're correct.
No, I'm not saying we are doing that. I'm just saying I'm just not sure what the process is anymore because of there's a different budget situation now.
Right.
So I just thought that as a commission, what we've done in the past is we'll say, well, we really need to take care of, I don't know, I'm just going to put this out there, tennis court resurface. And we put a lot of effort into that and really try to push for that. I think our chair would go with you to the meeting and say, this is our highest priority, things like that. And that was the way we approached it. With that being said, we've done that in the past and we don't get the top thing on our list all the time. But I just wasn't sure if you needed us to kind of put anything either in a motion or something that would give you for us to emphasize what your biggest priority is and what we think as a commission the biggest priority should be that they get funded, because you have a lot of things on this list and we just can't, they won't be able to fund everything for obvious reasons. So
I think that's a tremendous idea, and it's really how we've been operating since I've been here. We've really prioritized our big asks. So in my opinion, our tennis courts at Weed Beach have to be painted. So it got deferred. Right. And I think we need that to be a top priority. And I think that the tennis courts at Cherry Lawn should be a top priority. They just look like a mess, and there's repatching is not pretty. I think that if anything could get pushed out, I think the gazebo needs to get done, the roof.
Right.
And I think the parking lot at Woodland, I think this would be the year to do it, because it's only 20. It might pass through, and maybe if lower on the priority would be to move Tilly Pond dredging out maybe one more year.
My sense is in the past, what they've done is they give us one big thing and one small thing. I feel like that's been my experience, but I wasn't trying to throw a wrench in what you're trying to do. I just wanted to get clarity in terms of what you want us to tell them you want to do and what we as a commission then will support wholeheartedly. So anyway, it's just that otherwise it's a big long list. You know what I mean? We all want stuff. What are our needs? It's that Christmas time.
Yeah, and I'm hesitant about pushing out the 82, because if you look in 22-23, we're up at 340. So ultimately, something would have to shake out there too. So the bottom line gets real hefty. So either, we leave it the way it is, and if they don't approve it, then we're going to be forced to push it out anyway.
Yeah, and it just seems like we end up with this number that kind of goes, upward trajectory, but then we never get those numbers. So we keep on pushing things out and it falls off the page at some point and we forget about it, and that's happened too. So anyway.
Well, the Tilly Pond dredging has been on this capital sheet for a very long time. When I first got here, it was on, got pushed out, but it was a much larger number. I think it was like 165,000, and that was the number that the past director got. But Jim has recently gotten that requoted, and that came at 82. So not that anybody could tell that, but it was a much larger number years back.
Well, I think one way for you to be thinking about it is, are there items on this list where, the longer you defer them, the more expensive they get to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that, right?
Or they become safety issues. You know, if the courts at Cherry Lawn are in bad shape, it's like the basketball court. We just had to finally shut it down. We're gonna say, look, folks, is this what you want us to do again? Would you like us to shut down we opened the basketball court. Do you want us to shut down the tennis now because it's not safe? I mean,
like the gazebo, once again, there's a point at which you have a roof that's not, that's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. There may be a point at which you have to tear the whole gazebo down,
right?
Or replace the whole gazebo as opposed to simply. So I think that's just something you guys got to just give some thought to, like the dredging of the Tilly Pond. There may be a point at which that has a knock-on effect and leads to a much larger cost to the community at some point. And it's probably true for many of these things.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so I think we have an unseconded motion on the table. Amy, thank you. Okay, any more question or discussion? Okay, all right, Jamie, you can take the votes then, please.
Lori?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And Sarah?
Yeah.
It's everyone.
Ooh, okay, Pam, your report. And you need to highlight beyond what was written because the hours, again, getting very late. Pam, you're on mute.
One item I feel is very important to discuss is the concession equipment. So I have had a brief email interaction with Kate and Jamie and yourself, Lori, and I'm not certain how we want to move forward with that, but do you have any suggestions?
I believe we need to get, guidance from Kate and Jamie about, how we hone in on what the appropriate price is, and then, see if we can agree with the owner of the equipment. And then if we can come to terms, then we would have to go to the Board of Finance and request the funds this year. But it's really getting in because we have limited detail on the makes and the model numbers and exactly what it is so that we can go out and try to get an appropriate price. That was my question to Kate and Jamie, is how do we settle in on that?
Right. So I think what I'd like is approval from the commission for me to move forward with researching and working with Kate and Jamie on because we have to get this, we have to go out to bid. And I think I addressed it with my suggestion that, and I sent everybody the list of inventory, is that it would behoove us to keep the same inventory and just either replace the ones that are just haven't been taken care of over the years, and that we feel that we should buy new rather than purchase from Rob. There are some things on there that I think are worthy to purchase, and I think there's some things that are not. And I went down to both concession stands yesterday with the inventory in mind, and he is going to get back to us about the ages of the equipment. So yes, that will be helpful, but some of it just has not been maintained and cleaned properly. And I think once I get the ages of that, then it's a mixed bag. I think we may need to have some additional town funds for new things, and we would buy some of the used. But ultimately, we want to be able to go out to bid at least by late February, early March, and be prepared.
Yeah, and the question that Jamie posed back in an email this afternoon was, really, what's the commission's vision for, the snack bars? And, we've talked about it a bit in terms of, wanting, more variety, fresher food, et cetera. But That's what we need to hear people. I think my vision at this point is you have, basic serviceable equipment that a vendor could come in and, kind of provide typical snack bar fare, ideally healthy or fresh or whatever. And that once we have the option of looking at different vendors and rolling out a program, if we feel we need things that are more specialized, that would follow on as we got some more experience with how this goes.
Yes, we need to get through our first season.
But I think there's bare minimum equipment we need to have to run a snack bar.
It kind of is bare minimum. I mean, even there is no actual like stove or oven. They're tabletop grills. It's a tabletop griddle and a tabletop, what am I trying to say? A griddle, like a pancake griddle.
Can I make a suggestion? I apologize for jumping in here, but it's after 10, and it sounds like we're still not prepared to have this conversation. It sounds like we still need a little bit more of an understanding from you, Pam, as to what you're proposing to the commission in terms of like what we're going to do for the community as we go into the summer season, right? I mean, you don't want us to all kind of collaborate as a committee on a menu, right? I mean, I think I would suggest you're going to come back to us and say, for this coming summer, here's the menu that we're proposing for weed and for pear tree. What do you guys think about the menu? And by the way, here's the menu and here's the equipment we need to offer that menu.
Okay.
I don't know if Pam can offer a menu. That's really going to come from vendors, but I think we need to know what's the bare minimum equipment we have to reasonably get.
I don't know. I disagree, Lori. I think we can say we're going to do hamburgers and hot dogs, or we want to do salad, or we want to do, I don't know. Like, I think you can kind of generalize it to that extent and figure out, because then I think that gives you some guidance in terms of which vendors you want to go solicit to figure out what you want to do here. It sounds like we're kind of just chasing our tail on this topic. And I think somewhere along the way, I think my feeling is, Pam, I think you got to say, here's 3 suggestions, or at least, here's 3 different sets of options for different types of menus. Here's the equipment we have. Here's the equipment we think we'll need. I'm not sure how we're ever going to get closure on this item unless we have some very specific direction. Otherwise, it's going to be like a circular discussion that doesn't really. And I'm only saying that from the perspective of having lived through this circular discussion now for a bit of time. I don't see how we're getting out of this conversation with some conclusions.
My suggestion is that the inventory that Rob gave us of the current equipment, I believe we need that basic inventory, whether we buy it used from him or we purchase brand new. And I went through all the pricing today. So if we were to purchase all new and not buy any of his stuff, we would be looking at just under $25,000 that we would need from the town that was deferred. But we know that there's some of the equipment we can buy from him, and that would make sense for us to buy from him. It's there. He didn't have to take it out. It's there. It's, we're waiting on some prices. I think I just need the commission to approve, I guess, when I finally come back and say, well, I got to go get request a certain amount of funds.
But Pam, here's a question for you. Like, what is the operating model? Is your operating model from month to month, you'll solicit and engage a different vendor, and that vendor will come in for 1 month and provide, or are you going to engage a vendor for the season? And if that's the case, what type of vendors are you looking for? Who concessionaire are you looking for? Are you looking for somebody who can do X or Y or Z? And I think it might just be helpful to have that context. Like,
right, that's going to be.
You guys may have an entirely different opinion. I don't know how I can weigh in.
Okay, I think
in an intelligent way.
I think let's continue to do some work on this. As I said, we've been going back and forth, honing in on just getting the inventory and what we've got and whatever. And why don't we do a little more work on this? Tier had been providing some assistance. I don't think she ever joined this evening. And then we'll circle back in either the January meeting or call a special meeting if it becomes time sensitive, because it's getting late.
Gotcha. I agree. I'm
sorry
done.
to be difficult on it.
Okay.
I zipped it.
Yep. Okay. Anything else you need to cover, Pam?
No. If you're good, I'm good.
Yep. Yep, I'm good. I don't have too much more. As I said, Pam and I have been trying to gather preliminary information on the equipment and how to proceed, working with Kate and Jamie. We met with the police department. I think I don't have too much else beyond that to report. So I think unless anybody has any new business they want to move to, we can probably look for a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
I'll second.
Thank you.
And
Was
Merry
that
Christmas,
Kathy that
everyone.
seconded?
Yeah, it was Kathy who was second.
Okay, thank you, Kathy.
I had to stand up and walk around. I've been sitting all day.
All right, Lori?
Yes. I've been staring at the screen for 13 hours.
Susan?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes, and happy holidays, everyone.
Yes.
Sarah?
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas to everybody. Thank you, guys.
Hi, everybody.
all.
Thank
Good night.
you.
Be safe, be good.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Bye.
yeah.